of the example I was talking about was with algae, which is protists, I guess, as in they photosynthesize. The principles that were observed in the experiment do, like, if you had a single-celled eukaryote, yes, that wasn't protist, so whatever the fuck the opposite of a protist is, they can still reproduce asexually. Like, sexual reproduction was developed in the evolutionary history of things much later on.
The protist is just the eukaryotes that aren't multi-celled. So like, what would it be? Amoebas and protozoas and stuff.
Yes, a protist is a eukaryotic organism that isn't an animal, plant, or fungus.
Right. So meaning it's still single-celled.
Is today Dum Dum Day? Is that what today is? I was just wondering.
Apparently. Brenda, what do you like?
Yeah, that's what my calendar says.
Brenda, what do you have to add to this conversation, Brenda?
Learn high school biology first.
Okay, so enlighten us on the subject.
Eukaryotes, that's high school biology. They have a nucleus. Ta-da!
Well, I said.
Hey, wait a second. Did somebody say something about African bees there? I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I did.
That was really cool. So when you said that, like that they sort of changed their behavior when they got into South America, and I was thinking, like, you were talking about selective pressure or whatever, but I think that's bullshit because those things, they wouldn't really bother. So I was thinking, what's interesting about South America is there's a really weird, huge as well, magnetic anomaly in that region of the Earth. So I thought, hey, we were talking about 500 million years ago when there was this big shift in life. So maybe there's a connection between the Earth's magnetic field, the way it shifts, and some event that happened 500 million years ago. So I looked it up.
What does that have to do with bees? Look, the South African honeybee. Right?
Just let me finish. Just one more sentence.
Definitely Dum Dum Day. Definitely Dum Dum Day.
Shut up, Brenda, you fuck. So National Geographic says Earth's magnetic field flips much more frequently than we thought.
You fucking idiot.
Brenda, it's magnetism. It's better than his previous theory. His previous theory was that all the single-celled organisms got together, had a meeting, and decided to make multicellular life.
Fucking shit!
This is proof of that, right? This is proof of that. Listen to this, right? The planet's magnetic poles swap places at an astounding rate 500 million years ago, which offers clues to the core information and hints at the early.
Well, that fucking settles it, obviously.
Well, look, it's a huge piece of the puzzle there, man. I'm telling you, I'm ripping you guys new assholes here.
Wait, what? How are you positing that as an explanation? Like, what is the mechanism that causes that?
Dude, 500 million years. Didn't you hear him?
He's not positing mechanisms. He's pulling shit out of his ass.
Well, I know. I'm just saying
he deserves to be laughed at this point.
Hang on a sec. I just made a prediction that that something major happened to the Earth's magnetic pole 5 years ago.
You brought up bees, right? You brought up the behavior of different types of bees. All right. The South African honeybee is more aggressive and engages in swarming behavior because it has natural predators like the honey badger, and goes through large drought cycles where food is lacking, and so they swarm more often. They do something that's called absconding, where they leave a nest and go find another location. That has to do with their environment. That's why they're so aggressive. Okay? Now that they've been in South America, why am I being interrupted?
Who cares about bees?
That it doesn't have anything to do with magnetic fields. It has to do with predators and
Grixli, please. If you've got this interesting new theory that explains the Cambrian explosion, I beg you, publish a paper.
What does it have to do with
bees?
That's what I
do because the University of Finland beat me to it. The fuck?
Bees.
What do you think his actual understanding of the Cambrian explosion even is, anyways? Because I'm assuming he thinks it's some sort of burst where, like, all these different sorts of new creatures just exploded out of some geyser.
It happened over a period of 500 million years.
He thinks it's like my gene, where it's just like da 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 da, and then they just popped into existence.
Yeah, because of this. No. I'm offering an actual viable physical thing here about that the magnetic poles swap places at an astounding rate, 500 million.
Yes, and you have no and Grixli, you have no demonstrated mechanism as to why or how that would have any bearing on the Cambrian explosion.
Grixli, what you just learned about the magnetic pulse shifting is like a fun fact that you just became aware of, and you're like, oh, 500 million years.
Why would I look up the magnetic pole shift 500 million years ago if I'd never thought about the magnetic pole shift?
Because you're an idiot.
You're an idiot.
It doesn't make any sense. You're a dumbass. I just destroyed his point.
Yeah.
You called me an idiot.
Grixli, I'm not saying that you aren't so stupid that you haven't thought about this before. I'm simply saying you haven't demonstrated or even offered a single way that magnetic poles has anything to do with the evolution of multicellular life.
You could ask the University of Finland, but what I will say is that sensing and a load of bacteria in the ocean, and then you add in this crazy information being generated by the planet through these magnetic flows. Holy shit, everything's going to shit. Let's do something really interesting. You never know.
Link.
You know the shifting of the poles takes thousands of years, right?
Apparently this was rapid. And anyway,
it happens thousands of years.
Rapid on a geological time scale.
I would agree. And also,
okay, well, there's some confusion here. I'm going to clear up. Okay, there's a different. Everyone, be quiet for just a second. All right, I'm going to clear this up. There is polar shift, right? Which we're seeing right now. We're seeing the pole shift a lot very quickly. It went from, like northern Canada halfway to fucking Russia in like 10 years, something like that, right? The North Pole. But there's a difference between pole shift and pole flips, and pole flips I think is what this guy is talking about, and pole flips happen rapidly.
Those are tough moves on the dance pole.
Hell yeah.
Well, I don't see the connection with magnetism, because magnetism really has very little effect on biologic organisms.
Well, that's bullshit. If you put some birds in a non-magnetic environment, they cannot even
birds have structures to detect that in order to migrate.
We're talking about
there's certain life forms that have like magnetic sensors. Yeah.
Yes, but Grixli raised the point that he's trying to argue that the magnetic pole flip had any bearing on evolution of multicellular life, and you just linked an article, Grixli. Now, where is
contributed to some degree, but how significant that is, no one can say.
Where is the part of the article that you just linked that has anything to do with multicellular evolution?
The fucking title, mate. Read the title. That's all I read.
That's all you read is the title, and you're making these inferences based off of that?
I read the title.
That ought to do it.
I read the title.
I read the title. Guys, and you know all the title says?
Uncovered.
That's all that scientists do. They just read titles.
I'm working on a very quick rate here.
Grixli, read the title to us. Read the title.
I already did. I'll do it again. Hang on.
Do it again.
Do it.
Where's it gone?
Grix, we would have given you time to read into this if you really needed it.
Magnetic flips much more frequently than we thought.
It's not the title. It's the subtitle. The magnetic.
Okay, read the subtitle, Grixli. Read the subtitle.
At an astounding rate, about 500 million years ago, Precambrian explosion, which offers clues to core formation and hints at the effects on early life.
Now, Grixli, effects on early life, not effects on evolution of multicellular life. It doesn't mention multicellular life at all, in fact. It doesn't have anything to do with what you're talking about.
They'd be exposed, early life would be exposed to more radiation, which could accelerate evolution to a small degree, I suppose. Yeah, the more radiation from the sun.
But this guy's talking about magnetism. That's got nothing to do with it.
I also want to point out that the Cambrian explosion was about 535 million years ago, so you're also about 35 million years off.
Oh, that's wrong. That's fucking totally wrong. Anyway, so to get back to your point, Have we dropped out? Are you guys still there? Saying dead.
I'm still here.
Well, actually, it's 41 million years ago is the Cambrian explosion. So again,
no,
a bit of...
it's between 570 and 500 million years. So we don't know for sure. But the point is that yes, the solar radiation of the sun is related to the magnetic field of the Earth, because think about aurora borealis and all that. It has
the magnetic field shields the Earth from radioactive, intense, especially ultraviolet rays from the sun. Yes.
Right. So increased mutation. Loads of shit going on.
Possibly.
Grixli, what I'm trying to get you to understand, mate, is that single-celled life, unless it has evolved like complex multicellular life to detect and utilize magnetism, the effects of magnetism on single-celled life is negligible. At absolute best, is negligible, and usually is zero. Because unless you have a high iron content in the cells, magnetism will do nothing to them.
Well, that's not true, because if you have free radicals in the cells and then you introduce even a slight magnetic field, it can alter the rate that those free radicals remain.
See, what you need to do is to sick the Trump cells after the free radicals. That's what you need to do.
Like that.
Examples in MRI machine.
The white, you need to set the white cells against the free radical cells and have them go to war with each other.
Grix, I thought you were a young Earth creationist or something.
Who, me?
Oh, he's
no,
he's Gnostic.
Oh, I thought you agreed with Nephilim.
I'm open to all opinions.
Wait, what are you, Grixli? Are you like some kind of conspiracy theorist guy? Are you an alien guy as well?
Yeah, I'm open to every conspiracy.
Yeah, collect them all. Collect them all. You have a card. You have a card deck with all the conspiracies. All of them. Get them all.
I collected them all into a cohesive view of the universe, which I explained yesterday or the day before, which I'm not going into again.
Look, Jeffrey Epstein did 9/11.
Okay.
Jeffrey Epstein. That's obvious. Like, he did not commit suicide, right?
Obviously.
Okay, that's
obviously.
Grixli, are you a flat earther?
Anybody actually think that he committed suicide, you need to commit suicide.
Yes, we agree. But Grixli, are you a flat earther?
No, I believe the Earth is round.
Oh,
Why?
Fuck.
Why do you believe the Earth is round, Grixli?
He's still in the Matrix. He hasn't been red-pilled enough yet.
Oh, true.
The true Matrix is that the Earth is convex.
Wait a second.
There we go.
Wait a second. The flat Earth is also round.
Well, it's like a pizza.
You got me.
Yeah, it's like a pizza. It's round in the 2 dimensions. I see.
But the cellular Earth or hollow or inverse Earth, Lord Stephen.
The Earth is definitely not round, by the way.
Do you follow Lord Stephen Christ?
Yeah, Lord Stephen Christ. No, I do not. But I listen to a lot of his stuff.
You listen to a lot of his stuff.
Because because I find it interesting. I mean, he inverts the entire model and it works up into a point, except for the. I don't think it deals with what's the name of that weird eclipse that happens when the sun and the moon, when the sun's rising, the moon is setting, or the other way around.
The Salanellian.
It's called
Salanellian.
Jeez, who said that? How bright are you?
I said it. It's a Salanellian.
Yeah, that's the one. I don't think that can be proven in a concave Earth model. That doesn't make any sense. So spherical all the way.
Well, it's scientifically shown that the Earth is not round, at least.
Who said? What do you mean?
Oblate spheroid.
Right.
Well, that's a round.
Correct. Thank you, Orson.
Sorry, just quickly, Andricus, what the fuck is this
Orson's heard
Magito?
that one before, I guess.
Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about him. I just gave him the last warning. He knows where the line is.
Why is he so fucking mad?
Because he's iron. Because he's iron. He just hates. He just chooses to hate certain people. There's really no rhyme or reason to it.
Okay.
Was Iron in here? I didn't
Yeah, that's a Mojito. He's a fucking.
Okay.
He's a fucking Nazi piece of shit. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, Iron is, yes.
Why did
absolutely.
Nazis get so much hate, but like communists get a pass? They're both fucking equally garbage.
Show me a communist in the community that's like iron, and I'll not like them too.
Yeah, I've met some commies like iron. Yeah,
I've met a couple.
Like,
no, I have to agree. Communism is just as reprehensible as ethno-nationalism. Yeah,
I agree.
Are you talking about like tankies that you have problem with?
I think generally that's what we're talking about, aren't we?
You think communism is just as bad as ethno-nationalism?
Yeah.
Why is that?
The body count.
I think all ideologies are equally stupid.
Aren't you a religious person, Amox?
No.
Ah, I must have misread you then.
Why? Because I think I was talking about the improbability of abiogenesis, so you think I'm a fucking Christian or something?
Well, I mean, that's usually the kind of person, well, maybe not Christian, but some kind of religious person. That's usually the vibe they give.
Okay.
Apologies. Sorry, but who was saying about communism and the body count?
I was saying the body count is pretty high, and that's a pretty good reason to be suspicious.
And then
the political system.
Is the body count of capitalism not high?
I was just about to ask that.
Well, if the question is whether the communists are as bad as the Nazis, isn't the real way that you should be asking it is saying, what would happen to the world if each of them got exactly what they desired? And if
that's a good
what
one
they desired, then they would still end up eradicating and murdering people. If communists got what they desired, they wouldn't. And so there's something redeemable about communism.
That's a bunch of unfounded assertions. What are you talking about? Like you're just asserting that by fiat.
Well, fascism is kind of a nihilistic death cult, is what fascism, I tend to think what it is, yeah.
Free speech, could I say,
if communists... Man, you people are so fucking... It's insane, man. Like, the fucking biases you people have. Like,
there's something that you could be a communist without it necessarily being a terrible thing, and you couldn't be a Nazi without it being a terrible... Like, of course... That's what I mean. One's necessarily exclusionary, and one has at least a version of it that is emancipatory.
I actually think that any
how okay. Let's just first off, look. If we're gonna do the stupid right versus left dichotomy shit, right? Like, for one, on the right side, right, there's a difference between fascism proper and like German National Socialism. Like, they're quite different from one another.
Really?
Fascism. You can have really universalist fascism.
Fascism doesn't even have to be nationalistic.
There are some fundamental differences between fascism proper, which I mean is a nebulous term in and of itself. But German National Socialism was so concise in its definitions and scope that it's certainly something that's categorically different than fascism as a whole.
We also
the same way that like Trotskyism and Marxist-Leninism are vastly different from one another on fundamental bases, right?
Not particularly, right?
This is just all of this is all this like. Oh, well, the Nazis would have fucking just killed everybody that they didn't like and whatever. It's because fucking no one here actually understands National Socialism. You've never looked into it to any degree because you're fucking cognitively biased against it because of the Holocaust.
That's what
right? And you know a lot more about communism because it doesn't have that stigma. When you really actually research both of them to their fullest, which you should, right? National Socialism is just as emancipatory for its worldview as communism is.
This is like a little bit of a non sequitur to my complaint, which was because I had initially communism versus ethno-nationalism, which is distinct from National Socialism.
I think that it's actually important to separate the ethno component of the fascism, the nationalism, or whatever as well, because it's not necessarily race based either.
Exactly, that's what I was saying. Fascism can be universalist. It's not required to be ethno-nationalist. In fact, ethno-nationalist fascism is a lot weaker than universalist fascism.
I mean, fascism is kind of like a loose term, is it not?
It's rather nebulous, yeah, but I mean, there's some definite prescriptions there, like the maintenance of private property, one, as opposed to left socialism or whatever, right? But centralization of state power is something that both of them share, even though communists want to say that, oh yeah, but state erodes away and all that shit. But we're talking functionally, things that exist in the world, right? So, to the guy that was saying, like, well, if communists got their way, everybody would be fucking happy. Well, it's the same for a fucking fascist, right? And you think that, oh yeah, well, the fascists, if they got their happy world, the blood would just be in the streets running. Well, look at the fucking history of communism, buddy.
Yeah, I think the point that Amox is making, I really agree with, in the sense that I don't actually believe that there is any world where a communist state or society would exist without just the same level of turmoil and bloodshed as the establishment of a fascist one. And I also don't believe that there would, and we've seen it time and time again, that when the communists get their way, in quotes, they don't just vaporize once they've achieved their goals. They hold on to the power and they continue their control and totalitarianism until they're dissolved or overthrown.
Yeah, also the fact that when communism starts up, it's bloodshed and they kill like all the priests and then burn all the cathedrals and wipe out ethnic groups. Whereas if you look at the rise of fascism in Nazi Germany, for example, it actually dragged all of Germany out of like abysmal poverty and created one of the like most powerful countries in Europe at the time. So
well, I mean, to be fair, Lenin did the same thing for Tsarist Russia. I mean, Tsarist Russia.
But it came out of a lot of bloodshed. I mean, how many people?
Wait, but you're talking about National Socialism, and you're just going to ignore the Jewish issue. You're saying bloodshed.
Well, let's ignore that because it's not really relevant. Like we're talking about the beginning, not the end.
I mean, the thing is that you can flip that right back around and say, "Oh, you're ignoring the Jewish issue. What about the Christian issue in communist Russia? They fucking genocided Christians."
The Native American issue in America.
Wow. No, but they killed 2 million Christians in Christian Russia. So,
and
I don't think that's 5 times more than what happened in Holocaust. If you actually.
And let's not forget, the communists have a pretty bad history with the Jews as well.
Pretty much everybody did.
Initially, it was smash the state, and
including Marx, by the way.
Yeah, the 90% of the early communists were Jewish, and then they were like, "Oh, actually, it looks like we're a bit too Jewish," so they tried to get other people involved, and then they got like the whole country involved, and it was all smash the state, and then they did that, and then the Jews took power because that was their plan in the first place. And then they started to oppress the Russians. And then the Russians said, hang on, this isn't right. We're supposed to be in control. That was the agreement. And like everyone's supposed to be in control. No hierarchy. So then they changed it to smash the Yid. And then that became like, oh, that's so racist. And then the Jews had to flee to America. And that's where we are now.
Were the Death Eaters involved in
ideology is mental cancer. Just ideology simplicity, all ideology. If you think that a certain system
ideology?
Is the way to do something.
Veyyd, what is ideology?
I would define ideology as a certain set of prescriptions on human behavior, forming human societies of a certain configuration. I mean, we're talking about political ideology here, right? So ideology is applied politics. Right, I mean, you can have like an ideology of whatever.
It's just
like
a system of ideas.
I think ice cream is a better snack than donuts, right? That's an ideology.
Is just a system. It's just a system of political ideas. Within politics, it's just your political system. So why is having a political system
That's
bad?
why I'm apolitical. I think that politics is garbage.
What does that even mean?
You're talking about
politics. Ideologies.
You're talking about politics and fascism
when a certain
while trying to say
body
that politics is bad. How does that make sense?
An ideology.
I think what he's saying is that the acting of that ideology, trying to enforce your ideology on other people, is the problem.
Right.
Oh, he didn't say that at all. Fascism is all about forcing your political beliefs on other people. That's the whole point.
And he doesn't like fascism. He doesn't like fascism.
Right, Brenda. You
Since
seem to
when
be
did
operating-
Veyyd? Since when did Veyyd not like fascism? Please.
Since when did you get a fucking dildo up your ass that I did, dumb fuck?
Wait,
I
do you
never
You've
think,
always
like,
been a fascist. Come on.
No. He was trying to say that both fascists and communists are equally reprehensible.
Communists are
Wait,
Okay. I don't get the point of that. So
you made some vague point about ideology and then saying like politics is bullshit, but I'm wondering like do you think like enforcing the law is like a bad thing?
Well, so I was going to comment a little bit on that, right? Like, politics is really just a process of negotiation between parties, okay?
Yeah.
Parties of people, categories of people, right? Or just even individuals, really. But politicking, that's essentially what it is. It's a process of negotiation between parties. Now,
thank
when
you. Wow.
you have people
that's
who...
the deepity. That's a deep.
Right,
that's
right.
like
Shut up, Brenda.
sophomore
Thank you.
level.
Thank
sophomore
you.
level
Thank
poli
you.
sci
Yeah, it's
101.
dumb time, Brenda.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm just being a dumb, Brenda.
Yeah, just
being a
go on
dumb
to
here. Okay.
go on to the
So,
to how
so
you
when
describe
when the process of negotiation starts to, I would say, degenerate into factions. Okay, you get some people on one side of an issue and other people on another side of an issue, and then it becomes kind of a numbers game, and you have things like voting and shit like that.
Why would they even be
violent? Well, when you get the point of division, okay, that's when political ideologies form. They form among those divisions that can't be reconciled through political negotiation. And they're always just a prelude to violence. Every ideology is really just a prelude to violence, because what it's saying is that the political process of negotiation has failed. We have developed an ideology based on what we expect to get out of this negotiation. And if you don't adhere to this ideology, if you don't go along with what we say should happen, we can try to reconcile that with votes. We can try to reconcile that economically, and we're going to come out on top and we'll just buy you out. Or it's going to escalate to violence. So ideologies are always
with every political system.
This is like really basic politics. I don't understand what your intention is.
Yeah, what's your problem? This is how the world
works. Ideologies are fucking garbage.
Well,
how is it
what's
garbage?
your solution? What's your solution?
Yeah. What else can we do, man? That's how the world works. Like, and I mean, in the most simple physical sense, violence is the last word. So politics is just a layer we put on top of violence to avoid it as much as possible.
Hey, could you stop murdering people quite so much? Oh, you won't? Oh, well, then I guess I'm gonna put the hammer down on you. Yeah, right. So that's how it works.
That's where I'm at, right? So if we regress back to the process of negotiation where we're still all on the same page and we haven't factionated out yet where ideologies have a substrate to arise from, right? Then in order to just be efficient about it, instead of drawing these party lines and going through this process of voting and politicking and all that, let's just go straight to violence.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying it's a waste of time.
Right. Yeah, and
that
what
doesn't seem
is,
like a very good solution to me.
Yeah.
Well, here's what happens, right? And we see this all throughout history, is when you have the cancerous effect of an ideology that takes root, okay? It gathers more and more people into this camp. And you have these two opposing camps, and they grow and grow and grow, to these large extents and create these massive, including globally fucking encompassing conflicts. When if those parties had just fucking gone straight to fucking violence, local to where those ideas were being hashed out, they wouldn't have turned into fucking giant, globally conflicting ideologies.
So what I'm hearing is that I should really settle my differences violently. That's what I'm hearing. Right?
Can I also just ask one question, Amox? And I kind of see where you're coming from, dude. But what I want to ask you is, do you not think that if these parties locally resorted to violence instead of negotiation, that just like you described this problem, which is these ideologies factionize and they become this snowball effect and they draw more and more people in, don't you think violence has the same effect, if not worse? If I have a beef with someone and then I just directly resolve it with violence, I go to their house and I beat their head in with a hammer, don't you think that their brother or their father or their friends are then going to come back and they'll have a beef with me? They'll beat me in the head with a hammer, and it'll just snowball.
Yeah, that's the whole point. That's the whole point of having a governmental structure.
Blood feuds are a common aspect of tribal society.
It's a primitive way of settling differences. It's primitive.
Correct. What happens is eventually, through time, either an equilibrium between the tribes is reached, where there's a stalemate and violence
never ends
because both sides understand the losses they've incurred.
But it never ends.
One of the tribes gets subsumed on the other, and the violence is resolved.
You just
it just never ends. This is the stupidest take on politics I've ever heard in my fucking life.
I don't understand.
You're literally advocating for worldwide bloodshed, just a constant
we have to avoid.
We can actually look at actual history to see how what I'm advocating for is a superior system to what the paradigm is that we live in. Okay, so if we just give me a few moments here, right? This can take a little while, just a few minutes, right? If we look at Northern Europe, the Northern tribal Europe, pre-Roman times. The conflicts, the wars that they engaged in tribally, okay, were relatively constrained and did not involve very many men. You had the prime of the fighting men, the youngest and the strongest, who would go out and do battle with the other tribes. And typically, it wasn't wars of annihilation. You would the archaeological and historical record shows that these conflicts were really, when they would get together in war, right? We have excavated battlefields that had like equipment and stuff for hundreds and hundreds of soldiers, but we would only find, maybe tens of bodies.
Oh, right? You mean they didn't settle their differences violently? They had ritualized combat. Is that what you're saying? Ritualized combat in which people didn't actually die. Violence wasn't actually meted out to the enemy.
Shut your fucking mouth, or I'm going to locally mute you. And if I get fucking muted I'll just leave again. Look, I don't fucking care, mods. If you're listening, just mute Brenda.
Oh no!
Or I'll fucking leave again, okay? So listen. So what we found was, right? What archaeology has showed us is that these large populations, very large tribal populations in Northern Europe, typically their wars were very constrained, not very bloody, etc. Now, when you had Rome come along, this central power. It had an ideology, right? The ideology of Sol Invictus until the Christianization of Rome, right? So the fucking wars that Rome waged, these wars of just insane attrition, of conquering, okay, were so large in their scope. I mean, they fucking genocided the Gauls. If you want to fucking talk about a genocide, go read about what the Romans did to the fucking Gauls, okay? So, when we see tribes who are representing their tribal interests against each other, typically they have a very conservative and conservationist mentality when it comes to resolving conflict through violence.
So when that's the preferred way to go, then, right?
Ideology-driven, polity, like an empire or a large state or whatever. The violence that they inflict, the insane, long, atrocious violence that they're willing to exact.
That's what you're advocating for.
All of them are extreme.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? Like, so you're talking about these smaller tribes. Like, really, you brought up this juxtaposition between Rome and then these smaller European tribes, right? Do you really believe that if one of those European tribes had access to the military might and technology that Rome did, that they probably wouldn't have done the same thing in terms of the excesses of war, that they wouldn't have done the same thing as Rome?
Hell yeah.
Of course they fucking would, man. What are you talking about?
They actually had to. I mean, it was Cimbri that united all of the Germanic tribes. No, it wasn't Cimbri. I can't remember who now. But anyway, he's the one that went south and fucking became emperor. But anyway, they had to, because Rome was aggressing upon them. There were multiple campaigns into northern territory that were repelled, and finally the Germanic tribes were like, okay, well, fuck this. We're going to unite, and we're going to go fuck these people
There we go,
up.
good. So you're describing exactly what you were having a go at before. Large groups of them getting together and then, going and kicking ass. That's
right. Yeah, but if we're gonna point the finger of blame here, right, we can put it squarely on the Romans, who were ideology driven.
No, the Romans were driven by the same thing that has driven almost every small tribal war and everything.
That is not the case. The tribes, the northern tribes, were not driven by some type of codified ideology. Okay, they were driven more by a sense of fealty or philia.
Their entire economy was based on conquest and enslavement.
That's right. That's entirely correct.
Their entire economy was based on conquest and enslavement of their enemies.
That's an ideology too, man. That's political system.
No.
So with these other tribes. Dude, throughout the history of Europe
we don't see that. We do not see that. I mean, certainly in other areas of the world, tribal conflict did routinely result in the enslavement and domination of other tribes. We don't see that so much in northern and western Eurasia. Typically,
what?
Hang on,
have you ever heard of the French?
Have you ever heard of the Vikings? What are you talking about?
The Vikings were entirely pillagers. You pillage and rape and go through England. They pillaged England and went through city by city, raping and pillaging. That's how they survived.
Yeah, they weren't driven by ideology. You have to understand.
That's not fucking ideology. What are you talking about?
Ideology, dude.
Listen. Dude, Vikings were not driven by an ideology. Vikings were basically dregs of society, right? They were your criminals. They were your degenerates.
They had a society. They had a mythology. They had social norms and everything. They were a society.
You don't know what you're talking about.
What do you think their religion? What do you think their religion was, if not an ideology that united them and drove them?
Hold on a second. You want to know what the closest synonym is?
It was a warrior culture. It was a warrior
pirate. That's what the closest synonym to Viking is. Pirate. They were pirates.
Yes,
they had a pirate ideology then. It's still an ideology. It's just a collection of ideas and beliefs that inform their culture and practices. A code, as you described before. They had a code.
Yeah, absolutely, they had a code, and you go and you rape and pillage a few towns, and then you withdraw, and let them recover, and then you invade again once they've recovered.
They also seem to convert to Christianity and freed Sicily from Islamic oppression. So they fixed all of that.
So when you have ghetto gangsters, right? Hold on. When you have ghetto gangsters that go and rob houses, to buy crack, is that their ideology?
Oh my goodness, man! Seriously,
absolutely. It was only a matter of time. It was only a matter of time.
Such a false equivalence. It's such a false equivalence, man. No.
They were literally the lowest people in society, in Scandinavian society. That's why they were Vikings.
All you're doing here, dude, is this fallacy of the noble savage. You've for some reason you've glorified the Northern European tribal conflicts and made it out as if they're somehow better because they weren't driven by ideology.
They were just a singular example, okay. And I'm not trying to lionize or anything. That I'm just saying that when you talk about violence, all right, apparently you people think that the avoidance of violence is a virtue. Well, I'm saying if you want to minimize violence, right, the way to do that is to resolve violent conflicts sooner rather than push off that violent conflict into the future through ideology. Because if you let ideology act as the intermediary between violent parties, it's gonna fucking balloon into massive fucking conflicts that could have been resolved sooner.
Or maybe those conflicts will just get resolved.
Yes, that's another option too. Maybe they'll be just resolved through negotiation and trade and economics and politics.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like plenty of people go through their life without having to deal with like ongoing violence or anything like that. I mean, there's definitely places.
You don't know nothing about this.
Well, Veyyd is just a keyboard warrior. You don't believe in a single damn thing you're talking about. You're sitting at home in your basement, keyboarding all this bullshit. You don't go out and actually practice this stuff.
Really, you don't think I go out and fight people?
Who have you? How many people have you killed? How many people have you killed, buddy? You want to kill me? I'm here. Come kill me.
I mean, I don't have any reason to want to kill you.
Well, you should nip it in the bud.
Dude, you're not fighting anybody.
You should nip it in the bud before it grows. Nip it in the bud.
That's it, mate. I've got an ideology, buddy. You got to come stop me before it gets out of hand.
Okay, well, what's your ideology, man?
I've got lots of them.
My ideology is that Veyyd is just a keyboard warrior and a wanker. Probably a.
Which
ideology, bro?
Which ideology do you hate the most? Because I'll be that one.
Isn't it an ideology not to have an ideology?
Yeah, that's it.
Yes, it is. Yes, that's exactly right.
I mean, let's just recap real quick, okay? I'm giving you an objective, evidence-based way to avoid violent conflict.
Avoid violent conflict by conflict.
Oh my god, dude! Your argument is fucking to preserve virginity, and then we're all supposed to go, yes, brilliant.
What?
You're advocating that we fuck to save virginity.
No, what I'm saying is that, okay, look, it is inarguably the case that there are fucking people that need to be killed right now. Like
I can think of one. I can think of one right now.
If we fucking killed those people, okay? So what I'm saying is, stop fucking beating around the bush. Kill the fucking people that need.
I have a question.
We don't have massive wars in the future. That
beating around the bush is foreplay.
Sometimes
that bush needs to be abused.
I have a question. How many people need to be killed? Is the number 6 million or less? Is it 6 million or less?
Real clever.
No, I'm asking genuinely. Is it 6 million or less? Well, actually, right now it would be more like 12 million. But like, is it 12 million or less? I'm curious. Who needs to be killed?
This fucking guy.
No, but who needs to be killed? You haven't said the group or groups. Like, does this group have a particular?
You know who he's talking
who's
about.
Who's gonna die?
You
No,
know exactly who he's talking about.
Now, do these groups have long noses? Do they have like small hats?
Listen to me, okay? Let me be absolutely clear. The only property that all of these people in aggregate have, right? The only property they share is there's just simply the people that need to fucking die. There's nothing more to it than that.
Wait, so they need to die because they're part of the group that needs to die. But like, what? That seems very circular to me.
That's a Tweedledee Tweedledum kind of. That's logic. That's logic.
Well, no. Okay, so let me just think off the top of my head. Okay, so recently,
don't try. You're hurting yourself.
Look, one at a time. Just let it finish, and then you can go next.
Oh yeah, okay. I remember somebody dropped a link to me of a it was a live stream on YouTube of a bail and release hearing in I can't remember where it was. I think Richmond, Virginia, if I recall correctly. And I watched with a close associate of mine who is a law practitioner, and we're watching these people come through here. And I remember one gentleman in particular. He was a rapist, and they're talking about what he did. The prosecutor is reading to the judge the charges against him and what he did, and then the lawyer representing him has a chance to talk on his behalf and whatever. So this guy, just a litany of priors, felonies, aggravated assaults, just going back years and years, resisting arrest, etc., etc. Probably a decade-long rap sheet. So this guy, his latest arrest, what he is in front of the judge today, was that he was walking down the street, and there was a woman walking behind him. He turned around and took his gun out and pointed at the woman and said, "Follow me." He took her back to some train tracks. There was a stationary train there. And between two train cars, told her to take her pants down. He then proceeded to attempt to have intercourse with her, but he couldn't get hard. So he's penetrated her vagina with his gun. And
let him finish.
Then tried to anally rape her, where he couldn't get hard again. So
I can see why you remember this.
Oral sex, where he was able to achieve ejaculation, and he ejaculated in her mouth, and told her that if she told anybody, that he would find her and he would fucking kill her. She then went to the hospital and got a rape kit test.
Yeah, that's enough of Veyd's bedtime stories.